Okay, Monday, 28th of April, 2025. So Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know, Money Monday, Bitcoin, and the other stuff, everything else. El Salvador and Nayib Bukele, a Bitcoin contradiction. Now, this is something I've been thinking about and pondering and just generally formulate a coherent argument about for the past few weeks and months. And it's something I subtly and instinctively noticed when I was in El Salvador back in November 2024. Now, as a first principle, Bitcoin is maths, physics, and computer science, code. I always say that. Bitcoin is just maths. Therefore, inherently, we don't need to trust anyone. Don't need to trust any third parties for it to work. And I did a video about this as well, where risk isn't volatility with Bitcoin. Now, then that means then, if we look at it, we squint a little harder, we realise that Bitcoin doesn't need people, nor politicians, to justify itself, to exist, to be around. It's a complete separate system. It's like gravity. You can't switch off gravity. It just is. Again, it's maths, physics, and computer science. You can't just turn off maths. You can't just turn off physics. You can't just turn off computer science. It is what it is. It just is a force of nature. So then I thought, well, if it's a trustless network, a Newtonian network, I did a video about that as well, then isn't it a contradiction then to be in Bitcoin and yet relying and believing and trusting people? In a way, and prima facie, on first glance, yes, because it's a decentralized network that has no central point of attack or failure, by definition. So then I thought, well, that's interesting. So to put a faith in these people, that people, persons, whatever else, is a bit of a contradiction. Now, at first, yeah, and instinctively, yes, it makes sense. But then we can go further. And this dichotomy, this potential contradiction, reveals something interesting about the network, about the reflexivity of the network. Insofar as the more people that understand Bitcoin, accumulate, adopt, you name it, in some fashion, in some style, the more aligned incentives there are to help further the network, to help perpetuate it further, help it grow. And it compounds as a positive feedback loop, a flywheel, so to speak. The higher the network, the hash rate, the stronger it is. Generally speaking, the higher the price. The higher the price, more users, more infrastructure, apps, etc., like Lightning, whatever else. And miners, the more miners there are, the higher the network, the higher the hash rate, the stronger the security. Interesting. So on first glance, as you think, more people getting into the space, politicians, whatever else, you might think, prima facie, again, first glance, not good. But as you understand that the incentives are aligned, it's a positive thing. There's a meme in the space that says that Bitcoin is the money for, is tool for enemies. You can criticize, but you can't censor. So it's everyone. Again, first principle, it's maths. It's open source code as well. Computer science and physics. It's open for everyone. Everyone can access gravity. Everyone can access maths. Everyone can use and benefit from code. Code being software. Interesting. So therefore we realize that actually, on first glance, it looks like a contradiction. Opposing people. Because understand that fundamentally, we could say fundamentally, that politicians are psychopaths. You have to have some psychopathic tendencies to get to that level in society, to get to that stage in society, to climb up the hierarchy, that political hierarchy. You have to have some connections. You have to be ruthless in many ways. It's not for the faint-hearted. And then you can say, well, just because this politician is pro-Bitcoin doesn't mean that he could be your friend. He could be friendly with you, but he's not going to be a friend. There's always, because the nature of the business, the territory, it comes with the territory, so to speak. There's going to be some level of psychopathy, some manipulation, some underhandedness. You have to be to be in that such a high position and to maintain that position in that hierarchy, whether politically or corporate-wise, anything. There has to be some Machiavellianism to maintain that position. And insofar as that Machiavellianism, manipulation, narcissism, you name it, dark triad personalities, very interesting topic to discuss. They're going to have aligned incentives in a sense of they're going to want to use different tools and adopt different things to give them an advantage, a political advantage. Again, Bitcoin is a tool for enemies. And by doing so, they're going to be inadvertently aligned to you. So there's a contradiction there. Again, politicians like your friends, but because they're on the same flywheel, the same positive feedback loop, they inadvertently become friends. The incentives become aligned. So there's an interesting possible contradiction there. But when you dig deep, it's what's meant to happen. There's another meme in the space that talks about Bitcoin is inevitable. And again, that flywheel kind of proves that. But if you look at the 200-day moving average Bitcoin, that price indicator leading indicator or lagging indicator, but the indicator only goes one way, up and to the where? Interesting. Now understand that chart, the candles and whatever else, the wicks, all of that is just condensed human action, human decision, sentiment, greed and fear on a certain time frame. And that line, that 200-day moving average, is more spread out over the course of, in this case, 200 days, smoothed out. And if it's increasing, that means the flywheel is in action, and that introduces the logarithmic chart in that range of the price where it is. That things are moving upwards, meaning more people are using it, more people are adopting it. They understand the first principles. I did a video about this. Understand Bitcoin as though your life depends on it, and that flywheel is in effect. And more people are getting sucked into it, meaning they have more and more people have aligned incentives. That's powerful. Very, very powerful. Because then, hold on, let's find my notes again. Likewise, the more people that have their money in BTC, the greater the aligned incentives would be, and the longer the tech so more people are aligned incentive. And to go one step further, the longer the tech permeates El Salvadorian culture, politics, economy, you name it, then the more Bitcoin friendly the country will become. Because the longer it's been around, the more embedded, the deeper the roots are in the culture, society. You know how we have digital native people? People who are born only knowing the internet by default. We could say that you and I are automotive car natives. We were born into a world where the standard, the norm, was cars. And in the future, people born in 5, 10, 20 years from today, they will be Bitcoin natives. They will know no difference. They will know nothing else. Just how, likewise, you and I could be dollar fiat natives. We were born into a world post-1971 where all we ever knew was dollar dominance. And this is really alluding to hyper-Bitcoinization, but that's a complete different topic. And I'm quite confident I did a video about that as well. So the longer this technology permeates the culture, the politics, legislation, everything, the better. Meaning the harder it'll be to uproot and get rid of. Just how, try and get rid of cars today. It's just not going to happen. And this will be the norm in comfortably 30 years from now. Comfortably, maybe 15 years at a real push, but 30 years from now it'd be very normal. Which is why, based on that logic, the subsequent elections in the States, the 2028 presidential election and beyond, Bitcoin will serve as a much more fundamental cornerstone policy, as in, it'll be more and more expensive politically for people to be against Bitcoin in the future. As that flywheel grows, as that 200-day moving average grows, more people understand it, the first principles on technology, and they adopt it. The aligned incentives get stronger and stronger. It'll be more expensive politically and eventually unviable, politically speaking, in the future to be against it. Just how in the same way, it's politically unviable to be anti-car, anti-internal combustion engine. Let's all go back to horses. No one's even saying that because it's unfathomable. And in 30 to 45 years, it'll be unfathomable to be anti-Bitcoin because there'll be such a strong infrastructure and culture and politics and ubiquitous knowledge and understanding and awareness. And there'll be digital natives, people who are born today who go on to become Bitcoin maximalists or maxis 10, 20 years from now, that's it. That's all they'll ever know. And then when 20 years as opposed to 40 years, that's all there will ever be. And then we could again, Bitcoin is money and tools for enemies. People who would have psychopathic tendencies, politicians, dark triad tendencies, would want to get on their good side, and they might feign or indeed genuinely be pro-Bitcoin because the aligned incentives. It's so strong, it's so big. Being against it in general is unfathomable. The Overton window will totally shift from what's Bitcoin to, of course, Bitcoin. It's common sense Bitcoin. Anything pro-Bitcoin is common sense. Just how today anything car, internal combustion engine, the automobile is common sense. No one's advocating to use horses these days. It's just unfathomable. Run the world economy on horses, the horseback and literal horsepower. It's unfathomable. It's just unfathomable. So that's the interesting contradiction. Trusting people and politicians, but when you dig deeper, that's a good thing. It means the adoption is happening. So likewise, the more contentious future elections will be about being pro-Bitcoin. Again, it'd be unfathomable in the future to be anti-Bitcoin, as the education, understanding, awareness, ubiquitousness gets deeper and deeper into the society, culture, economy, you name it, infrastructure, finance, and it's happening already. It's bit by bit, and that's why it's a long-term game. I did a video about this. He with the longest time horizon wins. So indeed, then we could say, then logically, you expand the logic and what does it mean? Bring it back down to the original point. Seems that El Salvador is on a true path to become a Bitcoin country way into the future. A future Bitcoin OG. Well, by definition, OG today. But, when there's half a dozen, or a baker's dozen of countries that have Bitcoin as legal tender, the OG will be El Salvador. And then to go one step further, because I did a video about this as well, about when I went to El Salvador, the things that are happening there in El Salvador could be undermined in 10, 20 years from now in the next generation. But it's a bit more political, a bit more socially speaking, but that's an interesting thing. But if it continues along this course, then it could indeed be considered the OG 15, 30 years from now easily. Again, when half a dozen, or a baker's dozen of countries have its legal tender. And then at that point, in that kind of market setup and scenario and world, it's completely different from today. So the world will be completely different. But that, very powerful. A Bitcoin contradiction. On prima facie, on first view, yes. But when you dig deeper, you realise there's more to it. There's more nuance to it. There's many layers of nuance to understanding and connecting different dots together. Incentives, human action, you name it. Yeah, interesting. And looking long term, very important. The longer term horizon you have, and the further into the future you look, the better. I did a video about this as well, actually. One of the unexpected benefits of being on a Bitcoin standard. Yeah. But nonetheless. So Adrian's daily vlog, sharing smart stuff men should know. Subscribe for more, and you will see me tomorrow.